So, hello Hidemichi, I thank you very much for joining us here.
Pleasure.
And I would like to begin with the question about aesthetics, because I know that you put a lot of efforts into researching aesthetics, and I know that Japanese, they value very much aesthetics, and it's not like academic field, but it's in everyday life. You can see that they are very, very sensitive to aesthetics. So can you give us some thoughts on aesthetics in Japan, and maybe in comparison with other cultures such as European and similar?
It's, the aesthetic in Japan is so important because already the beauty, it's, object of all art. So, but art itself, already it's touched the nature itself. The nature is very important in Japan because we, there is an island country, so isolated, but also so many mountains, forests. 70% of the land is forest in Japan, even today. So we walk and we always, seeing the mountain we live. That's a point to understand Japanese mind, because it's a Japanese mind. It's influenced much the ambience, natural ambience. So many poets and many artists painted and wrote the landscape, and also the feeling touching up with nature. This is a expression in the art in Japan. Not human beings, but human beings. It's also the one part of nature. This concept is developed in Japan. So even now, of course, in Japan, it's so influenced by European or American, mind, and also it's modernism. But I think it remains, yet now. So I teach the Japanese aesthetic as which is based on the nature. It's a concept of nature and nature. And I also mythology. I taught mythology, Japanese mythology, Kojiki, Nihon Shoki. At the beginning of the Kojiki, it's mythology, 7th century, 8th century, he said that before the deity, before the gods, there had been, the nature itself, amatsuchi. Amatsuchi means nature itself, but it's chaotic natures, But anyway, the nature, it's created the human beings. Nature created, all animals also, but the nature itself is before the human beings or before the gods. So that concept is to remain always in Japan. So that's why we couldn't accept Christianity because Christianity said that God created the nature. So I think it's in Japan. I don't know, fortunately, unfortunately, less than 1% of the population is Christian. Even 5 centuries experience with Christianity. So it's very fundamental, this sense of nature. And nature, it's also very friendly and family. So I think it's, even today, its sense, it's remain. Levi-Strauss, it's astrology, famous French scholars who lived in Japan for one year or 2 years. He said that this nature is very important. Also, he said that mythologies, it's very important. It's not separated from the history. So mythologies continued with history. So we try to, understand the true meaning of the mythology of Japan. Takamagahara, it's interpreted as heaven, like in Europe or like in China, but I don't think so, because it's Takamagahara, it's a zone where the sun rising, Takamagahara, Ama, it's also heaven, but also it's sky, and also probably you know the Fujiyama. Fujiyama, it's zone exists in the zone of east in Japan, and where the sun rising. So I think it's Takamagahara means this part, and it's interesting that the mythology never explained this zone, history of its zone, and now it's archaeologists excavated, the many base and terracotta, also many dog idol, and so it means that in that period, I think there is one country, because it's probably also language, oral language. As you know, in Japan, it's letters begin with 7th centuries only, with Chinese characters. But before, there is no letters, so there is no document, written document. But there's so many forms, so many figures, which remains now until now, so rich with figures, with form, and so I analyze much these form, and so, for example, it's a period of Jomon. It begin 10,000. I think they now changed 50,000 years ago already in Japan, and so I think it's very important to understand the Japanese feeling and thoughts, because already for example, in prefectures Aomori, 20 years ago, excavated one, territory, village of Jomon period, and exactly it's form of the country, because in the center, like European city, it's like a church, like of course it's trace of the four column, and so I think it's so high, so big, and then there is the palace, and also it's near the palace there is a tomb of human beings. So I think it's already the system of the city there, and nearby there is forest, and they took the melon as a food, and also fish and many things nearby. So I think it's already one village is established, one unity to live in the Jomon period. And then so this sense of the village, or mura, in Japan they say mura, it's continued until today. So I think it's very important that many scholars understand with the theory of European way, and so progressivism until the modern times. But in Japan, it's the same, always same from Jomon period. And so also emperors, the same. 125 generations continued, you know. It means that from the Jomon period, it's already this system there. And it's difficult to, you know, there is no written text, but according to the mythology, Kojiki Nihonshoki, we can imagine the one country which name is Hidakamikoku. And Hidakamikoku means that sun-rising countries. Looking at the sunrise, the country, the people looking at the sun rising, and it's very interesting name, Hidakamikoku. But so I think it's even today the nature is so important, and probably you know the ukiyo-e hokusai. Hokusai means that hokusai, I think, very famous for the landscape of Fujiyama, and it's I think it's this expression itself means that region itself of Japan, because Fujiyama is one. There is a tradition that this, you know, represents meaning of worship of Fujiyama, and Fujiyama, it's Fuji. It's only existence. Fuji means that not, you know, second, but Fuji itself is, you know, important. And so the worship of Fujiyama means that the worship of the mountain, and also Ise-jingu. Ise-jingu, it's Jingu Shinto shrine before near Nara or Kyoto, and so important because these Shinto shrines, you know, or Amaterasu Omikami, it's a first goddess, you know, in Japan, written in the mythology, and so it's in these Shinto shrines, you know, there is nothing. Nothing means that, yeah, of course there is a palace with wooden palace, but inside there is nothing. Nothing means that the nature itself, you know, there is no figurative God or, you know, I think it's ideal. Anyway, yes, there's nothing, only the house with wood. It means that house itself is a God. The nature itself is a God. Wood, you know, itself is God. considered God. But Amaterasu means that the sun shines and God shines. In Japan, it's like, it's so, probably for foreigners it's difficult to understand, but anyway, do you know the seven summit, Prime Minister came to Japan 2 years ago, and this meeting, it's held near the Isejingu, and Prime Minister Abe, introduced these shrines, and it's so Shinto itself. It's so very natural things because it's no regular, no Bible, fixed Bible. Only there is this mythology of Kojiki or Nihonshoki only. Means that customs, means that habits of the life or with nature, and created like that and naturally Shinto. So there is no definition of the Shinto itself, even now. But I think there is three important worship in Shinto. One is worship of nature itself, mountain, Fujiyama, and trees, and also all natural things itself, rivers and water itself. But it's interesting when Motorinari said that of course nature is always there, but when the human beings felt that oh, this is God, or this is deity, so in the village is a symbol of deity, so fixed by people who live there, and so it's not always the nature. All are not gods, but the people of the village choose the god for them. This system also very interesting, and so every countries, every cities or village have his own gods. It's so for that they always they organize a festival every year, and even today it's so many festivals for the people of the village, and it depends on the village. Because gods are different in each zone. But anyway, so that's why we cannot define gods, because each village or each countries have his own god. And also, of course, there is a mythology, so sometimes connected with the god of the mythology. But anyway, it's very difficult to explain the Shinto itself.
It's lots of very interesting things that you told us, and maybe I would like to focus on one, because I really remember when you say for Japanese it's always the same, and on the contrary, you said that European, they have this progressive idea. So can you please focus here and especially in the Japanese historic periods, because we know this period as we call it isolationism, when the Japanese was isolated and then the Americans came and then they changed everything. So and what is modernization in Japanese culture? Can we speak about Japanese modernization, about things like that?
Okay, it's very important question, because it's modernization. It's, you know, for European people, it's modernization after the Industrial Revolution and the French Revolution, and so it's individualism. But in Japan, it's only try to adapt the new, you know, European system to do the war, because it's we were afraid of the always colonialism, you know, because it's when the mission came, Catholic mission came to Japan, 16th centuries. We know that they occupied Philippines and Mexico, all countries already. So we are afraid of this occupation, colonial occupation, with missionaries. So Oda Nobunaga and Toyotomi Hideyoshi tried to prohibit it. Toyotomi particularly prohibited, and finally 1613 Tokugawa prohibited, because already I think 700,000 people already Christianized, and they destroys Shinto shrines and Buddhist, you know, temples, and also they try to possess the territory. So Toyotomi, you know, prohibited them, and but Christianity accepted in Japan as like Buddhism, because Shinto is principal religion in Japan, but we accept also Buddhism already, 7th century or 8th century. Why? Because it's we understood that Buddhism is for the individuality. Buddhism and Shinto is for the community of Japan. So we separated two religions like that. That's why coexistence of Shinto and Buddhism in Japan is, and zone of shrine of temple of Buddhism. There is, you know, Shinto shrines. It's very so coexistence of Shinto and Buddhism. It's already until now continued, but I think it's they accept the, you know, Buddhism as individually thinking, and satori means that enlightenment of himself, and also enlightenment him as individuality who lived in the community. So Christianity, when Christianity came to Japan, they think the same thing with Buddhism, but the missionary didn't accept that, and they changed also Shinto, the religion of the community. So that's why the Japanese people didn't accept the Christianity. Even, after the Meiji period, the Christianity came, prohibition is finished, and so we accept all, missionaries Christianity. But even now, it's why less than 1% of population is Christian? Because Christians themselves didn't accept the Shintos as a base of, Christianity in Japan, individual religion. So we don't understand what is God, what is, monotheism. Monotheism, and also original criminality also. It's very difficult to understand because in Japan, nature itself is so important. So we have the human beings, it's one of the part of nature. So we accept all, the natural, things in human body, and also or accept all, because it's an example in the ukiyo-e. It's erotic scene also. In Japan, it's not negative. All accept all the, sex also. So it's in London there is a big exhibition of the shikido of Japan, and because it's for Christian people or European, so strange that sex is open in Japan, and of course there is a moral also, and so it's not anarchist sense of sex, but it's anyway. We accept also the sex also something beautiful, and that's why ukiyo-e painted with this scene of sex also. So the contrast between Japan and Europe, it's I think I explained already. This is acceptance of nature itself, or acceptance of God. And so God is something solid and also great. And but in Japan, the nature itself is so great and so sympathetic, and also familiarity also. We find in the nature this familiarity also, because in Japan it's so sweet, or so acceptable, or probably it's in Europe it's climate, it's not so always good. So the concept of the nature, it's very difficult to understand, like like Japanese people. But anyway, I think it's science. It's advanced now. Science is a research on the nature and the universe, and so I think it's a base. In Japan also, science is advanced also, because it's a science. It's researching what is nature, So I think the thought of or the future, it's based upon the research on science, we can develop the, the concept of nature more wider than now. And so this progress of research of science means that for us, it's, I thought that nature is very, superhuman, it's superhuman existence. But now, a little bit understand what is nature. So I think it's a new sort of the, for the future now. It's this Shinto's thought, like Shinto's thought, because we love and we admire nature, and also, there is a disaster of nature also. So like, typhoon and also tsunami also. In Japan, so many earthquakes. So we accept also this disaster of nature because it's nothing to do. Because so this also, we feel that human beings is one part of the nature. So I think it's this natural. I said always shizendo. It's a way of natural, way of naturality, and way of naturality. It's this idea. It's so important for understand Japanese society also. Why is Tenno is there always? 125 generation continues, more than 2,000 years. Or I think it's more than 2,000 years. Why? This is, it's very easy because it's the father of the family. Concept of the father of family. Father of the country. So many families there. And so many relatives, so many people, but all people came from the one family. Familiarity of family, sense of family is so important. So in Japan, is a state written in the country and family. Country and family. It's a state or kokka. It means that group of the families, or the state of the family. So I think it's now, of course, it's after the World War II, the sense of family, it's diminished, on the diminishing, and also individualism is so strong now. But I think it's in the countries in Japan, this sense remains even today. So I think it's the kokka, it means that state or nation in its its modern sense is there, but in Japan it's kokka means that community of all family, and even today since it remains, because in Japan it's after the Meiji reform, so many so many words from Western countries. So we translated the word in Japanese, and but in Japan, its language is kotoba. Kotoba means koto, the fact, koto. Ba means leaves. leaves of trees. It's very strange. But leaves, it's always changed and also fall down. It means that language, we don't trust the language itself. Language is something secondary, existence. So that's why we didn't accept letters for a long time before the 7th century, And to understand the Buddhism, we had to learn the Chinese letters, characters. But of course, but we understand the Japanese way to understand even Buddhism and Christianity. So that's important things for us. Why Japanese people remains always very kind and very familiar, and they have the difficulty to speak English or even holy language, because it's a structure of language are already different, and the verb is at the end always in Japan. So we don't judge soon. We judge at the end, So because it's a fact is changing, and all not so, fixed. Things are not fixed, and so also nature is changing. So I think it's language. It's not first thing. So sometimes we don't contract. We don't write contract when I'm publishing the book, because it's, if I promised orally, it's sufficient, And so this is, for us, it's natural things. And so I think that now many European visitors come to Japan and so curious about that. And they go to the province, they go to the countries, not only Tokyo, Shibuya, but also so many province, so many countries where there remains Shinto shrines and Buddhist temple, but also forest and way of life remains, Satoyama, and so Japanese in Tokyo probably they can't understand what is Japan, because it's when you are countries, you live in countries, you can understand easily what is the way of Japan. And so family is very important, and so there is not individuality like who lives in the big city, but it's assimilated to its nature, and also this sense is so important even now. I think.
You touched on the World War II. You mentioned World War II. So I would like to ask about this war, this experience that you had in Japan, and especially nuclear bombs. You said me that you actually had the personal relationship with it. And so what about this contemporary international order? And do you feel with the United States as an equal ally? Because we always see that Mr. Abe and even Trump, they are always together, like two against China. But can you touch on these things? And also in the end, what about China nowadays?
Very important question, because why it's Abe and Trump so they are the friendly relationship, because Abe insists always Abenomics and also the existence of Japan in the international, world, because it's himself. In Japan, it's this is also very difficult for foreigners. There is not only the Tenno's families, but also so many families who occupy the same work traditionally. And Abe also one of this father is Kishi and Sato, and also it's Konoe, and until the end of the World War II, these traditions continued. And so Abe succeeded this sense of continuity, traditional continuity in Japan. So Trump said that America #1 and American nationalism, and so it means that he liked his attitude, Abe's attitude, and so sympathize with that. And globalization, it's in Japan also adapted that, but in zone, Asiatic zone, China is communist party, communist countries, and Kitajosen also, and Hankook, it's South Korea, also it's against Japan always, because we are there during 50 years there, and they said that occupation, colonial occupation. But this concept is not so true, because we helped to construct modern countries in Korea. But they think that it's a colonization. But anyway, we cannot, together with them. So it's not necessary to construct like European Union in Asiatic countries. It's difficult, so difficult. So each country has its own history, and so Huntington said that this is American scholars, sociolog said that Japan's civilization is very independent from other Asiatic countries, even China or Korea. And one country is one civilization. So we understood well this, research, this opinion, and so from now on, I think it's the countries, it's continued with tradition and with sense of independence, sense of unity. And in Japan, they said, why there is a Tenno system? Others didn't and cannot understand. Why is it? It's a dictatorship. No, it's not dictatorship, because it's a father or family of all people, and also this sense is continued now. So I think it's from now on, like Lithuania also, we must know the character and tradition of each country, and basing on this sort of long history of their own countries, we construct, new concept of each country, and then international relationships begin. Because it's not a war, but it's an international friendship. It's begin with this construction of the, idea or thought of each country. So I think it's, we try to do that with Mr. Abe. Abe also, invited, as I said, 7 prime minister of each Christian countries in Ise-Jingu, means that we have this tradition. So please, looking at that, because so he invited to shrines, Shinto shrines, and this is our tradition. And also, nearby it's a forest, and forest itself, it's nature. It's nature itself. It's for us. It's something sacred, and so even Christian Prime Minister also very sensible about that, and he admired also this, ambience, natural ambience. So I think this is very important for the future also for all people, because it's Lithuania also, they like very much nature itself, and it's not why they like the nature, and very beautiful in there. Mr. Antanas conduced to see that, because nature is always there, and also very difficult, understand, even scientifically. And so with friendship, and also it's a sympathy, and also worship, something, like religion. We admire the nature, and so this is I think it's a future, because too much until 20th centuries, too much ideology, too much philosophy, too much, conflict, the war. We are already tired with that. So I think it's with this idea in Shinto shrines, it's Shinto shrines, there's no theory, no, something sacred. But even Japanese poet Saigyo, when he walked around the Ise shrine, I don't know what is that, but I cried, because I'm touched with this ambience, This poet is 12th centuries, already very popular in Japan, and he wanted to die under the cherry blossom. He wrote that in this poem. Now also we think about that, but modernization means that I think it's something, too ideal, too, artificial. And we don't accept this modernity as idea, but new industrialization and new mechanism and so many advanced technology, it's okay. But think it's this is improving the nature only, because it's also the nature itself is always untouched, I think, because even developed the territory or developed the forest, but the nature itself exists always, and but in Japan only probably 17% remains as untouched or as forest, as industrial country. So we must see the reality of the world, and we think too much about the technology and advanced, industry, but real things, it's continues the nature and continues, tradition. So one time, Kissinger said that 2 years ago in the newspaper, Yomiuri, said, we, American government, always has thought that America easily changed the Japanese government with CIA, and after the war, they tried to change the Japan society and Christianized also. So General MacArthur tried to emperor family as a Christianity, as a Christian family, but it failed because when the private teacher of Christianity, when she left, the France is abandoned study. So it's not possible for Japanese people to accept the Christianity because it's a monotheism. It's artificial, thought for us, only for us. So probably Korean, in China, so many Christian people, but we cannot, we Japanese people don't understand what is Christianity, even now. So, all right, so Kissinger said that we try to end this sense of occupation in Japan, and also for all countries also. I think Kissinger is very honest, and so he said that globalization must be changed, and each country must say that Lithuania is number one, or Japan number one, America number one. It's okay now. And this understanding each other can make the, I think, peace and make, friendly relationship among the countries. That sometimes it's, we are against America, United States, but in this case, it's we agree with that, And each country has its own tradition, own country's own aesthetic. So we must keep that sense, okay.
This will be my last question, and I would just like to ask about what do you think, what are the most important challenges to nowadays world and nowadays nations? And you also did not touch yet about your experience of the nuclear tragedy in Japan. So lots of people say that this nuclear danger is the most important danger, but maybe you see other dangers, and in this context also maybe what do you think about European Union, because it aims, they say that we need to be a big union because we need to challenge those challenges, because only this is how we can take those challenges. And Japan on the other hand is very homogeneous country. So this will be my last question for you.
I forgot to say about that. So first of all, when I was baby, I suffered the atomic bomb in Nagasaki. Fortunately, I lived in 40 kilometers of the center, so we are saved. But I think always atomic bomb and these nuclear weapons, but also we know that in 2 or 3 years, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, so reconstructed already. And then this, after the World War II, its atomic bomb is something very important to negotiate diplomatically, in the world, But we know about that. So even Fukushima, it's all embassy said escape Japan, immediately, very dangerous. But even one person not died with this incident of Fukushima society, and only the old man who, lived in separate from the native place, and so they died with this, difficult life. So I think the exaggeration is developed, too much. So in Japan, I think this 11 March, it's considered like it's a day of earthquake and tsunami. And 20,000 about people died, we also, it's very regrettable about that. So my friend also died with, I taught in Sendai, so, but we know that earthquake, and also these tsunamis, so something natural, nature, So atomic bomb, of course, it's very, something wrong with us, but nuclear energy and also, radiation also, it's something natural, it's exists in the nature. And so I think it's, we must use these, energy and radiation, and of course in the medical zone, medical field, it's used already. So we must exaggerate the danger of, atomic and nuclear things, and we must profit this good side, good points of this energy. And sometimes it's nuclear weapons. It's too much, appreciated as something, discovered in the modernity. So we know well this strength and force of, atomic and nuclear weapons, but of course provision of these weapons is necessary. I absolutely agree, but it's difficult to, even now North Korea, poorest country in the world, has a nuclear weapon. What's that? And so they profit this exaggeration of the force of the atomic bomb, So I think it's we must understand well what is the atomic bomb, and of course its provision is necessary, but America, Soviet, Russia, they cannot accept that. So I think it's recently I discovered a document that in Japan during the war, World War II, also succeeded the atomic bomb. August 12th, 3 or 4 days after the Nagasaki, So this is a secret, and also America and Russia, it's keep the secret, kept the secret for a long time, but I think it's. Of course, it's very dangerous, but in the war, even Japanese try to do that because it's in the war itself. It's something dangerous, and also if you have the weapon, they. Other countries rather respect that, and so the peace is continued, And this sense of continuity is very strange, but I think it's rather efficacious. So each country must have the atomic bomb, because it's this sense of is very important, because so Japanese now we don't say that we have the atomic bomb, but they consider China and North Korea and Russia and America consider Japan have the atomic bomb. It's very strange, but we never declare that we have that. But the technology, it's very easy to, Japanese technology is easy to have the atomic bomb now. So I think it's even small countries also can do that. And so probably this sense of possession of atomic bomb, it's create, you know, new era of the peace, you know, of the world. It's one hypothetical thought, but I think that because it's it's very contradictory sense of, you know, now diffuse in the world this competition of the having atomic bomb, you know, and many countries have that, but they never say that we have. So it's very hypocrite, you know, situation now. Yeah? So I think it's even small countries has said we haven't, but we have that. This sense is a very, you know, strange solution of this future on that weapons. But anyway, other things, yes. So we have the, you know, any idea of EU, this, you know, feature of the EU, and but please don't forget his own country's characters, his own country's cultures, his own country's tradition. So with this sense, you know, we can, they can create a new community. And we, you know, Eastern people, when we visit in Western countries, every country has its own culture. That's, I think it's, we respect these, you know, Western countries' culture. But when it's like Euro money, it's so homogeneous, you know, in Europe. We cannot come to visit each country, you know. So please maintain, keep the tradition. And I think it's, nowadays, I feel that, even today also. But sometimes it's same buildings, it's always, you know. And this sense, it's, we don't like. Something other to answer?
No, Hidemichi, thank you very much. It was very, very interesting interview.